minutes of the last meeting held on the 21st of March. I'll propose those. Thank you. Is everybody content with those minutes? Okay, we'll take that as approved. Thanks very much indeed. Apologies for absence. I don't think there are any. People,
no, Chair, we haven't had any
okay.
apologies for absence.
Thank you very much. Item 3 then is declaration of interest by members or officers. Are there any declarations of interest? I'm not seeing any. Thank you. So item 4 then, we'll go straight into the East Midlands Development Corporation Year 1 update. I'll move the recommendation, which is on page 18, which is on page 7, across pages 15 and 16.
Former Secretary.
Thank you. And we've got Ken Harrison joining us online. Ken, welcome. Do you have anything to add to the report? Anything to say by way of introduction?
Morning, Chair, morning, members. Thank you. The 4 key updates, I think it might be helpful just to highlight in terms of the year that's gone, but also reflecting on the fact they create a solid foundation for year 2 as well. First update around governance. We have now set up EM DevCo as a company. We have an oversight authority which Councillor Bradley attends, and a board of directors. We have been making good progress with the appointment of the board of directors. It will be independent. It's independently chaired by Sir Chris Howarth, and we're about to announce 5 further non-exec directors who will join the 5 local authority directors. And in the case of Nottinghamshire County Council, the director is Adrian Smith as the Deputy Chief Executive and the Director for Place. So a full board about to be announced in the coming weeks, which is good position to be in. The second update from governance is government and the relationship with government, and there are 2 key aspects to that. Firstly, financial support. Pleased to confirm, as per the report, that we have now received £1.5 million worth of match funding, and we're in close contact with the government during the year. There's also the policy considerations, and we're making good progress to advance this new model of development corporation that the EM DevCo company is set up as an interim vehicle ahead of a new type of development corporation, a locally led urban development corporation. We know there's quite a lot of interest nationally in this as well, and we continue to actively engage with government positively in that respect. Also in relation to HS2 and looking to mobilise and advance now with HS2 and with Homes England. The final thing to add in relation to government is we were one of 25 design code pathfinders announced. That follows the DevCo expressing interest in September last year for that status. That comes with a small seed fund of £120,000, and that's on behalf of the 5 local authorities to bring forward a design code across the 3 main sites in our consideration at the moment. The third update is in relation to a commercial partner. We've, in year 1, done quite a lot of soft market testing with commercial operators, and we're really pleased to bring on board now Arelli were the developers of Battersea Power Station. They've been brought in not as a developer, but in a consultancy capacity, and their team includes Benoy Architects, who are a Nottinghamshire-based architectural practice with a global footprint, alongside a myriad of other supports and teams, including planning, including legals and so on as well. So a great commercial partner to have on board to help us develop investable propositions during year 2. The fourth and final update, Chair, is in relation to some of the site specifics and the key themes. As members will recall, we've got 3 key sites that we're starting with here, with extraordinary potential to do something really special. Each of the sites is between 200 to 300 hectares. In looking at what that special might be, we've got a number of key thematic working groups that involve, for example, net zero with collaboration across our universities in the region, natural capital net gains as well. So we're continuing to work those themes through. And there's a couple of specifics, supplementary planning document. We're working very closely with Broxtowe as the local planning authority to bring forward for Towton and Chetwynd. And in terms of local development order, work continues around Ratcliffe Power Station as well from a Nottinghamshire context. So, as I say, I think all of that sets us up nicely for the year ahead, and we'll continue to progress those key themes and objectives. I hope that helps, Chair, for now, and happy to take any questions.
That's great. Thanks very much indeed, Ken. We've also got Keith here, Councillor Girling, Chairman of the Economic Development Committee. This is obviously within the remit of economic development rather than finance, but obviously we've got the finances to consider this morning. So I'll open it up to any questions or comments on the, Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things that this council has seen over 5 years is not just an explosion of the cost of council tax for families, but the increase in bureaucracy. These things come at a price tag, however, Mr. Chairman, and membership of the East Midlands Development Corporation comes at a price of £500,000 a year, directly from the Nottinghamshire council taxpayers. On top of this, you can add the City of Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Economic Prosperity Committee, the Midlands Engine, the Committee on Strategic Planning and Transport, and the Health and Wellbeing Board. We have then the current plans to create another level with the combined authority of Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, which we know is now under serious threat from the new administration at Derby City Council following the elections. The question has to be asked, do you consider this value for money or jobs for the boys? The report of the first year of the East Midlands Development Corporation sees it attach itself to a number of projects already planned. Let's take paragraph 33 in the pack, the Integrated Rail Plan. Whilst this delivers for the East Midlands Parkway, it has left the County Council embarrassed after spending 22 million on buying land in and around Towton Station based on another broken promise from the Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the Tories. It celebrates the government finally promising to electrify the Midlands Main Line, something first announced in 2012, and then put it on the back burner in 2017, and then begrudgingly promised again in the much delayed IRP on the 18th of November 2021. The report talks of 1.5 million match funding from government, but even so, this is taxpayers' money, and I don't need to remind members that in the last year, identifiable public spending per head was the lowest in the East Midlands by some distance. Moving forward, what are we doing as a council to scrutinise whether this is good value for money? Let's face it, the things contained in this report would have happened anyway, like the Freeport. If the setting up of new bureaucratic institutions and boards delivered infrastructure spending, then we'd have a London style per member of population spending. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I would dispute that these things would happen without this kind of structure in place. We're absolutely set this up to bring in that funding which you talk about, and you know, it would be folly to not have to not take part in this, and to waste the enormous potential there is for job creation around the site. As far as the land purchase at Towton goes, there was a sound business case with or without HS2, so I would completely dispute that that's in any way wasted money. That's an asset that's there now to contribute to the development around that site. I know the site very well. It's in my division. Keith, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. It's amazing how some people look at things, isn't it? The cost of £500,000 from this council. It's an investment, and actually the DevCo is a mechanism to be able to deliver the projects that we want to be delivered. If you look on, I think it's paragraph 19 And just look at some of the commercial partners that this DevCo is bringing in. They are phenomenal global companies that have come to Nottinghamshire or to the DevCo because of the structure that's been put in place and because of the people that's involved. You know, I'm delighted that Benoist, a local company to Newark, you know, global company. They've got companies all around the world doing the things that they do, and they're involved, a local company in that. Yeah, they don't mess around. They won't be bothering with the DevCo if they didn't think it was worthwhile and a good cause and they could bring something to the table. They're a brilliant company, and those companies listed on there are incredibly strong companies that are actually going to enhance the DevCo. So to say it's the old thing that you said then shows your lack of understanding, absolute lack of understanding of what the DevCo is all about, what investment it will bring, and what benefits it will bring to the people of Nottinghamshire. It's beyond me. I mean, you're going to invest in a hotel that you're now having to sell at a loss, and that's not a cost to the public. But something like this, which is actually going to bring in a lot of investment and the expertise of some fantastic companies, amazing companies, it's beyond a joke. Sorry, Chairman, but it is.
Thank you, Keith. Councillor Hollis.
Thank you. I won't get into that tirade, but I think firstly we're not selling any hotel, and secondly the point that Councillor Girling makes emphasises the points that Councillor Waters makes, what the group's going to do. You know, it's been set up. You know, why hasn't it done things already? But I think just to say a few words on a complimentary note. Obviously, it is a bit of a sombre occasion, I suppose, with being the last finance committee, a bit of an end of a era, really. I just really want to say a few thank yous, really, firstly, particularly to Keith, Nigel and Pete, obviously, for holding the show together, and I certainly, particularly with regards to Keith and Nigel, the advice and time that they've spent with the Independent Alliance Group, briefing us, taking us through some of the quiet details in the papers, and obviously it's those briefings will continue, but obviously just in a different format, and it's appreciated, really, and I think it goes to show actually how the council is successful. But I think you can't get away from the fact, you know, since 2017, the average council tax has gone up from £1,291 to £1,700. That's a £300 a year rise for the average council tax property within Nottinghamshire. And let's compare that to Ashfield, where we've only taken it up by £15 in the same period.
Do you have anything on the agenda item that we're discussing?
It is, but obviously this is the last committee for this one. And but since this committee was created, since this committee was created, it's taken up the council tax by £300 for the average property, and particularly in the light of the current crisis we're in, I think it's tough. And there's no other local authority of a comparable size that's taken it up by that amount, and that's happened on the Conservatives' watch. And one benefit is to this committee going is I hope there'll be a different level of decision making than what we've seen for this committee, because taking it up to £1,581 for a Band E property from £1,291 over the lifetime of this committee has been tough. That's since 2017, since you took over. But I think just moving to the agenda item, obviously I agree with Councillor Waters, and that we're not seeing the things that are being delivered, and I find it impossible to see where we're getting value for money for the East Midlands Development Corporation. After 12 years of a Conservative government and 5 years of Conservative-led and run county council, hardly a brick has been laid or a difference has been made apart from, Councillor Clark will be glad to hear me say, the Gedling Access Road, but that was delivered 25% over budget. The amount of expensive bureaucracy is impossible for residents to understand, and therefore scrutiny and therefore transparency is weak. I repeat that we can't link the setting up of this organisation with a single successful delivery of the regeneration funding. The government's buzzword at the moment is levelling up. They even took local government out of the name of the local government department at government and replaced it with the word levelling up. Is levelling up really happening though, Mr. Chairman? Well, in November, we all waited with bated breath for the announcements attached to much delayed integral rail plan. In the East Midlands, certainly in Ashfield, we wanted to see the government announcing an extension to the Robin Hood line and a return to the passengers on the Maid Marian line, which would have benefited Hucknall, Sutton and Selston in particular. Councillor Ben Bradley had announced that this would happen in the ILP. He'd even briefed the Sun newspaper, who splashed it on it in the third week in October 2021. Lee Anderson, MP for Ashfield, even had to beg Mansfield 103.2 not to broadcast an interview with him from which he claimed credit for it. Except there was no such announcement other than the government would have a look into it. This is what happened. This is what I expect from the East Midlands Development Corporation to deliver. Both Lee Anderson and Ben Bradley changed their tune. They said they were busy fighting for better buses, except just a few months ago, the government announced that we were receiving only 30 million, not the 98 million bid for better buses. Is that what we call levelling up? We will reluctantly support this today, Mr. Chairman, but be warned, we will use the new governance arrangements to call it in on ongoing funding for the East Midlands Development Corporation every year and base out any decision on whether to continue support on evidence that it actually makes a difference. I'm afraid to say, Mr. Chairman, there are scant, if no examples, of how this has made any difference whatsoever, except in attaching itself to successful regeneration schemes that were going to happen anyway. I think it's rather like Nottingham Forest changing their manager today, and then a new manager claiming credit for being in the playoffs, Mr. Chairman. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure much of that was anything to do with the paper that's in front of us. In terms of what successes there are 60-odd paragraphs of successes of the Development Corporation, which is in its infancy, which is being set up, but which has attracted £1.62 million worth of external funding, and that should be celebrated. You are going to support it, so I'm not quite sure what all the criticism has really been about. Bruce, you had indicated.
Just a few points, Mr. Chairman. I get fed up with pre-prepared researcher-led questions. Anyway, or comments. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. DevCo. Yeah, well done, Ken. I think it's an excellent initiative. I know that we're going for Treasury backing on the company itself, which will have a massive impact in your ability to be able to develop out areas across the whole of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, Leicestershire, which is going to have a real impact on the number of jobs in the area and obviously financial viability of the area. So it's a real positive, and I welcome all the moves, and I know Ben's been working very closely with you. The positives to come out of this are enormous, and to have the level of professional background that you're developing within DevCo will only make a real improvement to the area. So well done. This is an excellent paper, and I look forward to seeing you grow from strength to strength. I just have to put a word of warning. Really, it is not sensible for members in this chamber to start talking about jobs for boys. I think that leads to very dangerous connotations and within the chamber, and should not be used as an explanation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bruce. Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. Look, firstly, just to say thank you to you, really, for chairing this over this administration and the previous one. We might not have seen eye to eye, but I thoroughly applaud your professionalism in the way that you've delivered this committee. And also a huge thank you to the officers, 151 officers in Keith and Pete himself. That's supported us all in returning any questions outside of the paper. So long may that last into the new cabinet system, to be quite honest. I'm not against the DevCo at all. In fact, I think it's a brilliant name. I think it sort of resonates with positivity. That's not to say that I'm completely sold at this moment in time. I get, I think it was Keith mentioned, list of businesses that's included, and there's some impressive names in there, and that is a positive. So the future, certainly, at the infancy of where this is positive, but that doesn't mean to say that there's not going to be scrutiny held, and I think there will be change made. I think there will be change because we've already had a change in Derby. The political status in Derby has already changed. I think we need to recognise that for DevCo to be successful, we need balanced support, an equilibrium of outlook as to actually where we're going. And, you know, there's way too much over on the west of the development now. Some needs to come over to the east towards Newark and Ollerton, shall I say. But, you know, we'll wait our turn initially. Recognising that DevCo has no voting rights on the Freeport board, although sits on the board, sort of the structure and the definition from the MOU, I'm looking forward to reading that. I think that's going to be important to understand how the DevCo is going to move forward. And I think it'll be interesting to know at some point what voting rights the Freeport will have on the DevCo board, because I think there'll be, in recognising the businesses that are laid out in front of us and the suggested achievements that we're going to have, there'll obviously be returns that both can see positives for, and therefore there might be some lobbying for what advances are made. But again, I think that'll be down to government funding, I think, and we'll need to be up on that, chasing that. And I think, as I've said in chamber before, there's a change politically in how funding is made. And we probably need to be, or not probably, we need to be at the forefront of being able to apply for that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the structure of the DevCo made more substantial and understand exactly what is going to be called from the MOU. And again, accountability, I think, and openness and transparency. Again, there's obviously connotations for the mayoral role, but there has to be accountability and there has to be accessibility for us all to question, irrespective of who it is or who's leading. I think the structure that you're setting up from the MOU needs to be that we have a place to raise questions and receive answers from. And Ken, you mentioned the planning and the consultancy. That in itself is, you know, again, recognised £500,000, like he said, in today's market is huge, but it's acceptable, I think, for the returns that we're looking at. What I wouldn't like to see is a constant consultation and planning that then drags on and drags on. I think after, and we recognise, you know, I want to say after 12 years of Tory rule, we've not had the investment. If that's what we're being asked to support now, and there is support there through the DevCo, then the consultancy and the planning needs to move forward at pace so that we can all see relative speed in change and positivity from this. But again, I am looking forward to understanding the total title of the DevCo, and certainly knowing how it can be, the accountability that it holds in its openness and transparency. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike. I mean, just in terms of the geography of this, obviously the DevCo specifically is set up for those 3 sites, which, you're right, they are on this side of the county. It's not to say that Keith isn't active all over Nottinghamshire in plugging the economic development agenda, and he can speak to you privately at great length about it, I'm sure, any time. John?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Just going to ask if I'm not against it. I want things to move, and you know, it seems rather sluggish at the moment. But also, we need to recognise, as already mentioned, what's happening on the eastern side of Nottinghamshire. How, you know, infrastructure might be a big thing, because we've got a hell of a workforce on the eastern side that need to get there. And I know there's some more junction going at M50, is it, or A50, whatever you call it, to get people. And I know that a substantial amount of people go from here to work over at Derby at what was Bombardier, I think is it Alstom now, and Rolls-Royce, etc. So we want to bite to that, you know, because there's going to be a lot of jobs at the Freeport when it finally gets going. Also very interested on the rail infrastructure, because it seems to me now that we've virtually lost Houghton, what's going to happen with that and how can we improve that connection to other places. There was one page I was going to ask for, and that was really for public interest, and that is probably on the back of what Lee was saying. How much is it all costing? And I think, you know, we're open to scrutiny ourselves, which is public knowledge, what each individual allowance is, what people have claimed and things like that. And I think it would help, if that was in there, it would help with document along, because you will equate it. It'll be peanuts compared with the millions, or if not billions, we can bring in over a certain period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I don't see anyone else indicating, so I'm going to bring Ken back in. And perhaps, Ken, if you can just give us an idea on the accountability and the transparency of spending within the DevCo, and then if there's anything else you want to sum up on the debate that you've heard.
Yep. Just in terms of some of the points raised, I think the impetus and the emphasis we've put on the commercial partner coming in, I think, is partly that set of sense of how we transfer to investable propositions and delivery. In terms of accountability, it is through we're obviously working across local authority boundaries, in part to bring that focused, if you like, focused energy into the 3 sites, and leveraging the, you know, multi-billion-pound investment we can see coming through on the horizon for. In terms of accountability, each of the local authority members is represented on the oversight authority by respective leaders or portfolio holder in the case of North West Leicestershire, and then that provides a route for that local democratic accountability as a local, and ultimately mirrors the intended locally led urban development corporation model that we're looking to advance as well. I don't know if that helps, Chair.
Yeah, that's very useful. Thank you, Ken. So I think there's been a good discussion. Part of the recommendation was to comment on the 2-year plans, which we've done. I think Keith's been listening intently, and we'll take that back. I don't think anyone else has indicated. So can I see everybody? Tom, do you want to come back very briefly?
Yeah, so just to pick up on Councillor Clark's point, which I think was really well made, do we actually have a figure about how much these directors are paid? And then the second question is, do we use a recruitment agency to appoint the non-executive directors, or how are they chosen? So they're the 2 final.
Do you have anything on that, Ken?
Chair, absolutely. So the non-exec directors are actually voluntary posts, so we're really pleased with the level of response we had to the advert. It was through a recruitment agency as well, so it's been a purely independent process, and well advertised, I think pushed locally as well. So I know through some of the engagement with Rushcliffe Borough Council, they're we're pushing it at a local level, and I'm pleased to say we have got, you know, local representation through in terms of the private sector non-exec director members of the board as well, due to be announced in the next few weeks. But I don't know if that helps again.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of employees, these are mostly sort of co-opted from the partner local authorities, is that correct?
It is. There is a very small exec team, again, as part of the process, but it is as you described earlier, Chair. I think we're in the formation stages still. Where we can, we do utilise resources that exist within the local authority family, and obviously we've brought in expert advisors, as you've seen through the paper.
Okay, thanks very much. Jim, you want to come in?
It just sort of leads into that. The actual business plan goes up to 22-23. So bring us aboard to getting together. Have they got any key stages, key timetables to actually going beyond the 22-23? Anything that they can bring back to the cabinet system, as it will be then? So I'm just wondering on the progress of the plan after 22-23, who will be dealing with it? Will it be the new board, as you've already said, just in place? And do you have any key time stages within at the moment for that plan?
It will be going back to the oversight authority in terms of the democratically accountable process, and the board will be the fully formed board now will be considering the business plan activities moving beyond 22-23. What I would also say, if it's helpful, is that this is an interim vehicle, so it's ultimately set up with an eye on forming a statutory development corporation. When we looked at this, it was a 3-year programme initially, so we're into year 2 now. That's because partly we see the potential to bring forward through legislation, working very closely with government, this new type of development corporation. So maybe in a year or two's time, the organisation is ready to flip into a statutory development corporation. So this business plan in process now is about creating the platform for that. I'll pause there.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Keith, I'll bring you in finally.
Yeah, if I could just come in on some of the comments really in terms of particularly Towton area. We've always had a plan B, always had it, just in case we didn't get what we wanted. And that'll be coming through the normal system as we work it up and get onto it. As for Ollerton, I used to sit just there opposite, next to Councillor Stella Smedley. I know that Ollerton is the centre of the universe, and always I'm aware that Ollerton and the investment that they're looking for over there. So I can assure you, Mike, nowhere in this county it gets overlooked. Nowhere.
Not a lot happens north of Ollerton.
Well, it does. And so everywhere, as if there's an opportunity there, we will actually go on to it. As for the levelling up, I think some districts and boroughs, I mean, one particularly got £80 million towards the levelling up fund. Neilk and Sherwood, we've done quite well as well. We've had a £25 million for the Towns Fund, a £20 million for the levelling up, doing the Southern Relief Road. So, you know, levelling up is happening. It's how then the districts and boroughs utilise that money to level up their area. And I think that's a good thing, because it's then down to them, not to some bloke in a suit in Westminster.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to let Councillor Waters come back very briefly, and then we're going to go to a vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't quite catch in the answer to Councillor Clark or Councillor Hollis's question. Regarding recruitment, what were the agency fees?
I don't think we would have that.
I'd need to check that particular figure, but we did use agencies to do that.
So we'll get you a written answer on that. Yeah, okay, thank you. So it's been proposed and seconded. Is everybody in favour? And that then is carried. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. You're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to go off and do something fruitful with the rest of your day. Thank you. So I'll move on to agenda item 5 then, which is the digital strategy. And Paul, I'll ask you to introduce it.
Thank you, Chair. This is a set of principles. It's a strategy that's been drawn up in light of us signing the Digital Charter, and it's about how we will develop systems and services moving forward. And it's building on the work that was done by the Government Digital Service. It uses digital principles and moves us towards an agile way of working. And agile is an actual process that you can deploy. It also has in there a set of IT architectural principles, such that when we are developing systems and services, we do that in a consistent way across the authority. And the whole concept of this document is to get us to be developing systems in a way that is joined up and puts the user at the heart of everything that we do. I think I will leave it at that then.
Thank you very much, Paul. So I don't intend to go page by page through the appendix, but I'll open it up to any questions or comments. Tom.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Paul, as well. There's no doubt that a digital strategy is vital for any council and will deliver significant savings moving forward and reduce the technical debt. In a recent survey of social workers at this authority, many blamed bureaucracy for increased stress. This led to increased sickness absence and had a financial impact on the service delivery. We are at the bonkers situation where our care staff were spending more time filling out multiple forms in their cars than the time actually spent with the person they had to visit. So with regards to this paper, we welcome any moves really to ease this stress and strain on the workforce. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, since COVID, the way councils deliver services have changed forever. Nottinghamshire County Council are in the process of delivering their hybrid working strategy approved by the Council's Policy Committee on the 15th of June 2021. The digital strategy is obviously central to this, and I can't pretend to understand some of the technical bits within the appendix. Compared, though, to March 2020, will the Council's digital strategy, coupled with hybrid working strategy, make this Council more or less reliant on physical council offices? If the answer is less, does the chairman agree that spending 15.7 million on brand new offices we clearly don't need at the top of Wigay Farm is increasingly ridiculous? Thank you.
No, I don't. I mean, we've rehearsed this argument so many times, and I can see steam coming out of Keith's ears at this point. But look, we know we're moving to a different way of working. We do need an office estate that's fit for purpose, and we do need staff to be in the right place, which, frankly, at the moment isn't how we're operating. We've kind of got a bit of a legacy of offices being where they've been for years, rather than where the services are needed. It will be a great improvement when we've addressed that, and people will be in far better conditions to be working. And there'll be, in the long term, there'll be savings from the reorganisation of the office estate, as you well know. I don't know if there's any of the technical points you want to address, Paul.
Only that what we would do as you go through this is you'd have to do an impact assessment on each individual major either procurement or system replacement. So you wouldn't, we're working hand in glove with the Investing in Knots guys on the property strategy. So it's not as if they're not cited, but you'd have to look at each individual project. This is a set of principles about how you develop that rather than, you know, this is the estate.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. John, and you were next.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a comment. As one who is, well, as an electrician, I suppose, to understand all this, but I don't. Because when I trained, it was probably steam electrics then, but now we've moved on to the high digital. What I will say is, Paul, is since you've been out there, adjusting, doing whatever you've done over the last year, I find it a lot easier to access laptop and the phone that I've been given by the County Council. It's a lot easier. Now, contrast to that, I've just changed my Gedlin iPhone, which is a nightmare because they're trying to protect from cyber attacks and this, that and the other, and everything's supposed to be stored here and there. But it does tell me that we, over the last 10 days, 140-something people have tried to access my account and to get into it. Have we got the same protection on the county ones?
So yes, we do. One of the constraints that we do have is trying to link to other organisations proves really challenging. And the reason it proves challenging is because we've got multiple layers of security in place, and I think I'm more than happy to come and talk to you separately about those different levels of security. That's not something I'd want to do in a public forum, because then you're actually telling people what your security protocols are.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. My IT works perfectly right up to the point when I say it works perfectly in one of these meetings, and then it seems to fall over the next minute, but I'm not going to say anything today. Yeah. Thank you. Jim.
Thank you. Yeah, just two questions. One of them is more of a government thing, to be quite honest. On the technical debt, do we have a time that when we're at a time scale that when we'll actually be caught up? I mean, technical debt will always be a little bit behind because of improvements, etc., etc. So do we have a time scale of when we're actually planning to catch up? Because to move forward with the plan here to do less will actually mean that new programs we would have to catch up, etc., etc. Do we have any time when we're going to catch up as far as we can? And then more on a national thing, when it comes to actually making things easier for people to use, there is the issue of compatibility with our partners, so mentioned here, health service and all the rest. So is the government actually making aim so that we're all using a system that can actually be compatible with each other? So I think I've asked you before, and I think I know the question, but it's the actual, that particular one on the government. It's extremely important that we are working with partners, and more so with partners, that we have compatibility, that we don't have to go through various changes, and we can't do this, we can't do that, here's a bit of paper.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Paul.
So two things there. The compatibility issue is not just related to how we function, it's related to how your suppliers give you systems. So a good example would be Microsoft and Active Directory. It's quite difficult to get everyone working on the same, what they classify as a forest. So that's going to take quite a long time, and it's not always within government's gift, but it is something that they are cited on. In terms of technical debt, on the IT strategy, there's a work plan which we've produced, which is looking to resolve some of that technical debt. Now, that's a 3-year work plan, but there are some activities that go past that 3 years because there are some big systems in there. So, for instance, your current HR, finance, payroll, and commercial system, that will need upgrading at some point, and that's quite a big ask. So that you would tend to do that over more than 3 years. So we do have a time scale, but it won't cover absolutely everything because they require some significant thinking and significant investment. So that'll stretch out slightly further.
Thank you, Paul. Andre.
Yes, I welcome this report. Paul and I spoke about this before. It's the end user that matters, and I'm afraid sometimes you've got onto some of our internet work, and the end user has a real problem. I don't know if anybody's ever been on the HMC website, the government website. It's absolutely fantastic. You can get through, you know where you're going. It's easy to use. Click here, click there. It's all linked in together. It's a super website, and it's a government website. And I think we should make our internet usage easy to use for the person who lives on her or his own, who don't use technology, so they can use it easily. Trouble is, it's difficult. It's set up by people who are used to technology, and it's got to be set up for the people who use it. And I welcome this report, and I'm sure that going forward we're going to have a internet technology to be proud of. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Andre. Mike.
Thanks, Chairman. And just probably following on from Jim, actually. The partnership working is going to be so imperative in the future for us to all to see a benefit. And again, I think it was Councillor Hollis mentioned timescales that frontline services are spending filling forms in. So if that can be eradicated in having an overall understanding for each partner that's working together, it's got to be positive. That said, if we were in a position to give you more men, more bodies, and more funding, what would be the benefit from us? What benefits are we going to see if you could reduce your 3-year period down to 18 months? If Richard was able to do it.
Paul, absolutely.
So it's not always throwing people at things. One of the issues that you may have been cited on in the past is that you've got people with knowledge in their heads about how your estate's been created, and they're a finite resource, so you can put more bodies on, but they still have to access the same people, so you create a different bottleneck. It's about appropriateness, and I think at the moment we've got a situation where we've got the appropriate level of investment to deal with the backlog that we currently have. If that then becomes an issue, I would flag that with finance officer, etc., and we would work it through. And we'll have a set of projects that will come along that will request funding to deal with some of those issues that I mentioned previously. So at the moment, I wouldn't say just throwing people at it won't necessarily solve the problem. And also there will be some technology updates that are necessary in the wider market in order to move us to the position where interoperability becomes really, really straightforward, which at the moment I agree it's not, but there are some investment plans in place to make it better, specifically with the NHS and providers.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's probably what I expected. But you'll recognise from today's conversations that council is undergoing some serious changes. The compatibility and the references to cabinet and that will all be inclusive or continue to be inclusive with the responses that frontline services can make and how they can be seen to operate more efficiently. So in that case, are you comfortable that you are tying in with the speed in which this council is moving forward with development, corporations and free ports, but also in general will also be a speedy update?
I think so. Without knowing the specifics, I think we are in a position where we can respond to the demands that we currently have. That doesn't say something's not going to hit me from left field, because that's always the nature of the industry we work in. But at the moment, I think that's okay.
It's a good point. I mean, we're constantly evolving, and the IT needs to keep up with it, doesn't it? I know one district council locally that still has links to its MEPs on its website, for example. You know, we've been out of Europe for 2.5 years, so I think our website is as near as damn it, very, very well up to date. We did have a cull of pages. We had an inordinate number of pages on the website, which we reduced massively some time ago. I think it's a good site, actually, looking at others. Keith, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just one question in terms of the security and all that, which I do understand. It is one of the things, because technology is supposed to help people work in an efficient way. And one of the biggest bugbears from the councillor's point of view is we haven't got a system where calendars can be integrated so that, you know, a lot of us are double hatters, a lot of us have a life outside this council. It will be such a wonderful thing that, you know, people can access their calendar, it's one calendar to look at, and that it's secure. And if you could cure that, you're going to be my favourite person in the council.
Whenever we have an IT item on our agenda, it always turns to a debate about members' IT, which is the tip of the iceberg for the amount of IT that goes on in the council. And I know Paul's working on things that can integrate with double-hatted members and all that sort of thing. So it is all in hand, but it's not really a part of this. But Paul, do you want to come in? We've started it now.
So this is a really interesting one, because I spoke about the Active Directory and the forest. That is tied up with that issue, and that's why it's extremely difficult to get calendars to sync. I think you can do it for about 2 people, but the minute you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or PAs, etc., it starts to become an utter nightmare. So that's the reason why it's extremely difficult to put in place. Yeah.
Okay, so I neglected to move the recommendation, which I'll do now.
Formally second, Chair.
Thank you, Roger. Did you want to come in, Bruce? You're voting for. Okay, you're ahead of me. Okay, can I then therefore see everyone in favour? And again, that's carried unanimously. So thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. That draws the meeting to a close. Can I thank everybody that's been on this committee for the last year, and many of us who've been on it for the last 5 years. I've always enjoyed committee, even your contributions, Tom. But I think it's always been a useful committee, actually, and a good-natured one as well. So I thank everybody for that. Thank officers. I thank Nigel in his absence, and Keith and the whole team that have supported us. Thank you.